Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder All Weather here. We are going into a little bit quieter period for severe weather over the next couple of days, but it does appear to come back by late this weekend into next week. But we'll also have to keep our eye on the tropics because things are starting to look interesting. So let's take a look at the overall setup. Here's a satellite picture. We had a convective complex that blew up across Kansas yesterday, left all the heavier storms and larger hail within Oklahoma last night and the higher wind gust. That convective complex continued to move through the overnight hours into North Texas. Now it's swinging into Central Texas with all the lightning strikes, and it's continued to dump very heavy rain. Some of these rainfall rates were upwards to 1, 2, if times 3 inches per hour. You can actually see a lot of lightning strikes with it. So they're still getting impacts from severe storms, but those are going to be areas further south into deep Texas as well as into Louisiana this afternoon. So if we can take a look at what the Storm Prediction Center has for the rest of the day, it does include that marginal risk for severe storms where that convective complex is pushing through. So those areas back into San Antonio, areas back into Corpus Christi, the Houston Metroplex, further south into, say, Baton Rouge, into Louisiana. We also have a pocket of instability where we do have a low pressure center that's going to bring some marginal storms back into Minnesota as well as into Wisconsin. And there's another pocket of energy through Ohio as well as into western Pennsylvania. So there are several areas, but nothing as significant as we have seen for many of the last weeks. And even into tomorrow, just really your garden variety general thunderstorms. In fact, we only have one little area, one small area down here into Florida. They went ahead and highlighted as a marginal risk because it's been a while, folks. In fact, look how busy it's been. I mean, this is the stats from the Storm Prediction Center all the way through the entire month of April, May, and the first couple of days of June so far. In fact, without that little bitty marginal risk, the last time they actually had just a normal garden variety thunderstorm day was way back on April the 5th. I mean, it's been extremely busy. We're talking 2 entire months, right? At least a slight risk for severe storms, if not enhanced. We've had plenty of marginal risk. Then we've had that one high risk day, back on May the 6th. But so if you sum it all up over the last couple of months, it's been extremely busy, guys. Yeah, confirmed tornadoes for the entire month of April and May. Talking 786 tornadoes, folks. That's extremely busy. 239 EF0s, 375 EF1s, 77 EF2s, 26 EF3s, and 3 EF4 tornadoes. It goes down as the second busiest since 1950. It only falls behind the historic season back in 2011, and you all know what happened in 2011. So yes, it has been extremely busy. So that's why we're enjoying at least a little bit of a respite for the next couple of days. But we're going to be talking about a lot of heat because, wow, San Angelo yesterday cranked out 111 degrees, just shattered the record high temperature. In fact, it was their third hottest temperature all time there. And it's like June the 4th, right? So that's really warm, especially this early on in the season. Widespread heat advisories for much of the West Coast, much of the desert Southwest. We'll be having excessive heat warnings and watches up for those areas. But you can see where the trough is, right? We've got some cooler anomalies coming in from this northwest flow that's going to be inundating those areas across, the upper Great Lakes as well as into areas of the Ohio Valley. You have some instability there, some marginally induced showers and thunderstorms, but you still are going to be impacted from some light to moderate rains and some not heavier rains at time with some strong gusty winds. And overall, your temperatures, there's the temperatures by the time we head into Friday afternoon as we get deeper into summer, as we head towards regular summer in a couple of weeks. Yeah, we've got widespread 90s for the deep south, even triple digits for Texas, triple digits, if not triple digit teens for the desert Southwest, widespread, 90s and hundreds for much of California, Nevada. And the heat is going to continue to build as long as that ridge is going to be locked in place over the West Coast. That's why it's just going to suppress the thunderstorm activity, at least for the next couple of days. But you can actually see by Friday we are going to see a little bit of a difference here. Where you got to have a little boundary right across the middle of the country, and all it really takes is for that high pressure just to back off just slightly, and that creates the northwest flow again, like we've seen at so many times before. And that allows another disturbance to travel right along that northwest flow. And that's going to be bringing more instability for those areas across Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, back into Arkansas, with more heavy rains and some isolated severe thunderstorms, while much of the the Great Lakes and much of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast is going to experience some of those cooler conditions with that trough coming in, and you'll have some elevated rain showers to move across that region during the day on Friday, while much of the West Coast is baking in the heat. So by the time we head into your Saturday, Friday night into Saturday, we'll be still watching that convective complex move across the plains. Now we have a little bit of a cool front. Basically a separation of a boundary of wind direction. Really, that's at this time of year, but it's going to overturn the atmosphere, cause a convergent zone, and that's likely we're going to be seeing the focal point for more showers and thunderstorms and some isolated severe storms heading into Kansas again, back into Oklahoma, as well as into Missouri, those areas back into Arkansas during the day on Saturday. And then by Sunday, there's the cool front, just slowly sags, right? So you have the high pressure pulling in those south winds, those warmer anomalies, but it can't push any further because it gets felt by that high ridge of high pressure. So it tends to stall. So it stalls and creates that boundary. And a lot of these same areas that have just been inundated as of lately across the eastern portions of Colorado, back into Kansas, through Oklahoma, through Arkansas, western Tennessee, western Kentucky, areas of North Texas, those get back into the action again with that stalled frontal boundary draped across that region. And then you'll still be having the leftover effects, which you're going to be dealing with that troughing inversion that's going to be coming in from Thursday and Friday and heading into Saturday for those areas across the Great Lakes. But yeah, it's going to take its sweet time because it's going to be continue to move, sagging a little bit further south. As it does, it's going to again overturn that atmosphere, setting that boundary across eastern portions of New Mexico, the panhandle of Texas, back through North Texas into Arkansas, back into western Tennessee, Kentucky. Those areas back into West Virginia are going to be feeling the effects of that instability during the day on Sunday, heading into Monday timeframe. And as it does continue into Monday, there's a kind of a rare cold front for this time of the year to make it actually this far south. And it actually looks to appear to go in the Gulf of Mexico, but it's going to be leaving a heavy rain swath before it does and gets there, right along the I-10, I-20 corridor for those areas across the deep south of Texas, back into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, back into Georgia, the areas in the Carolinas. And by the time we head into Tuesday of next week, it actually gets into the Gulf of Mexico. And right, we are in the middle of hurricane season, folks. And obviously it's going to run out of steam and it's going to stall in the Gulf of Mexico. And it's going to set up shop and bring some more heavy rains back into central Florida. And we'll have days and days and days of rain feeding over the state of Florida. But also we'll have that low pressure. We'll have that cool front draped across the Gulf of Mexico. And the longer those things fester there, and this time of year, they take their sweet time in possibly forming. But it is something that we have to be on the lookout for because, hey, we are into hurricane season now that started a couple of days ago. And whenever you get a stalled front, you always look on the southwest side of that stalled front where they could start lowering some pressures and develop a center. But we'll also be looking at the northwest flow coming back. And these are areas probably the last thing you want to see if you've been, just inundated in this zone as of late. And if, in fact, the ridge is going to back off again. So it's going to come back for a couple of days, but it's going to sink back down into Mexico. And that's going to allow this trough to come in from the southwest, set up shop across the Rockies again, activate those mesoscale convective systems, drape it across. And as they push through, they're going to bring some more heavy rains, deep tropical heavy rains across this region, and the higher wind threat, some larger hail associated with it. So we're going to see that pattern overall return for next week, unfortunately, with a lot of the same areas getting hit again. And while at the same time, we'll be watching that area back into the tropics. So right now, the ensembles don't really have this grabbing on anything. I know the GFS run has been hinting at something, the 15th and 16th on these individual runs. But overall, the ensemble guidances are just kind of seeing what we're seeing. It's just an area of convection with that, with that low pressure center just kind of hanging out in the Gulf of Mexico. So if anything, it's going to be raining a lot in Florida for days to come. But yeah, the global, the Climate Prediction Center does in fact highlight that area with that stalled frontal boundary and with this, Central America gyra that we often see this time of year with areas of low pressure. And the longer they sit there and spin and then kind of fester with the conglomerate of thunderstorms, the greater the probability of some low-level center trying to form, especially within those warmer waters. So we tend to watch pretty much everything this time of year, but they do in fact highlight that area through the 12th, the week of the 12th, and as well as week of the 19th for possible tropical development. And if you look at the overall ensemble guidance, kind of hinting at, yeah, there are some members trying to spin up an area of low pressure right around the 15th, right? So you got these individual runs that have been kind of hinting at something going into the Gulf of Mexico from the GFS, not too much for the European guidance, but the overall GFS ensembles have about, 6 different members out of 35. So there's, it's not like it's 40% or anything like that. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, especially this time of year, as we're getting deeper into hurricane season. But yeah, overall next week, basically what's going to happen is that ridge of high pressure is going to be sinking back down into New Mexico. That just allows the northwest flow. So you have these systems come up and they come across, and then boom, you get it locked in these same patterns where you get these convective complexes come through Colorado, come to Kansas, through Oklahoma, through the Panhandle, through North Texas, back into East Texas, and swing through Louisiana, and then combined with that stalled frontal boundary there into the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to put, Florida in the bullseye for some heavy rainmakers for several days to come, really all of next week. And overall, as we get deeper into next week, we'll be watching that convective feed, right, with that very high water content value feeding into central and southern Florida. We'll also be watching the northwest flow opportunities, not just at the beginning of the week, but continuing likely through the next weekend, as that northwest flow pattern just doesn't seem to want to go anywhere. As long as that ridge stays down there in Mexico, that's going to allow it to create that northwest flow. And so you're still going to get a lot of the same areas to be impacted with more heavy rain and severe weather across the southern plains and the central plains. And that, along with that stalled front, will be bringing a lot of heavy rain for the state of Florida. And some of that will be shifting up into the East Coast. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you do hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and catch the next update while I protect you before and after the storm.